I just wrote this story, and I've decided that I wanted to talk about Europe. One thing I want to talk about is the lowering birth rate. That's really something I thought I should talk about. We're all okay. We're all worried about the lowering birth rate. I guess I'll just record this so that I can use this dialogue that I'm having with the people in my story. I know how to do it too. And I think I'm gonna put it on speech notes. Vocaroo. Hold on. Something that makes no sense to me is that in America, the schools are closing down because the birth rates are low. And that doesn't make any sense because there's still pre-existing children and foster children. It makes no sense that the birth rates are low, but we still have pre-existing 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds. Like okay. Okay, schools are closing down, right? Right. What about the fact that if 20 babies are born in a hospital, all those babies must wait to get to school age? Legit. Like, they can't be immediately handed off to a daycare. They may be seen as too young. So, you have a position where all these babies are being born. But do you know how many children there are? I see hundreds of children on social media, hundreds of babies on social media. That makes me question the whole narrative of the birth rate is dropping. There are so many people already having babies. And I don't see how this is even. Like, I can't see it happening. I'm not watching it happen. I'm seeing babies be born. A foot doctor just gave birth. There are pregnant women all over Facebook. They say the schools are closing down, but that doesn't make any sense at all. Because, like, y'all gotta hear me. What is the point of a school closing down when there's already pre-existing children? They say that communities are being affected. That would mean that the school wasn't paying attention to how many children there are now. They're only paying attention to how many children there will be in the future. So they're closing down right now. What is the point of that? I can't really see the point in this situation. Also, Europe. Europe is also experiencing a very severe birth rate decrease. Babies aren't being born. Babies aren't being born in Europe. They're being born like 10 years between each other. But the thing is, when a baby is born, the Europeans start celebrating, meaning this isn't a choice. This is just happening. In Europe, children in Europe, there was a situation where people with mental disabilities were being forcibly sterilized. This is like, to be fair here, abuse victims understood this and were like, children shouldn't be raised by these people anyway, because they have all these mental disabilities. I was raised by someone with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, and they made my life a living hell. The only issue is that these are mentally disabled people, and if you do, like, certain procedures to prevent pregnancy are painful. One causing bleeding repetitively in a teenage girl on a regular contingent basis, of which no one would stop. There were so many side effects that this person didn't know existed. And she had to go for a different one that she thought had the least side effects. Which is why I don't support forced sterilization, because it doesn't just stop your ability to have babies. That, and I believe people should be able to have babies if they want to, but essentially, it doesn't just stop your ability to have babies, it also adds on extra side effects. I'm not saying that I'm not saying you should have kids if you're mentally disabled. However, there are children of people with Down syndrome who actually have happy lives. And the thing is, well, a mental disability can cause certain issues, and you can act erratically. There are some disabilities that don't really cause you to act aggressively or erratically. But at the same time, it's like, what if the country is secretly sterilizing the Europeans in these small towns? Because that's weird. I noticed normally in countries when specific genders are dropping off, because there's a place in Poland where they're only having girls, they're not having boys, and no one knows why, and the mayor is concerned. And here's the thing. Normally, in countries where one gender is not being born, it's selective abortions or baby murder. In places like Asia. In places where, however, in one place in Africa, the baby boys aren't being born. The baby boys aren't being killed off either, because they have celebrations when they have a son. Now you're probably wondering, why you celebrate when you have a son? Why not celebrate when you have a girl? It's not because they don't like girls. There's plenty of girls there. Why? Because their men aren't producing girls. Their men are producing girls. A lot. So much so that it's very rare to have a son. That's why they celebrate the birth of a boy. It's not because girls are seen as unvaluable. Girls are, of course, going to be valued in a society of mostly women. It's because the baby boys are very rare to be born. So they celebrate them. That's weird. That's not very common. They do say that the Y chromosome is dying out, but essentially, or transitioning into something else, but essentially speaking, it's not, and that's weird because I see in America, baby boys are being born on a regular contingent basis. We're having lots and lots of sons. So why are these specific places having little to none? Now, it could be genes, but it has to be something wrong with the men, because males are what gives out the gender. Something bad is happening to their sperm, and it's possible that it's PFAS in the water. Because I'm noticing they're not just dropping down on birth rates on sons. Not sure about the African situation, but in the European situation, Europe has a male favoritism type situation. Granted, there are a lot of European women that just don't like men, but those are typically American and British women. Like it happens in Europe too. There's a lot of high sexism in Europe, but it's like, at least in some countries in Europe, but it's like, legit, these people don't have an issue with having sons. Like, they don't really see an issue with not having them, but they don't have a huge issue with having sons. Also, why is all of the sudden baby boys are dropping off
the birth canal. Either someone is killing off their sons and only preferring to keep their daughters, which is illegal, and you shouldn't kill babies, especially not for gender, or either God is not making boys for a particular purpose, for whatever reason he has. Maybe so they can adopt embryos, or Trent's taking, I don't know, embryos that people don't want to birth. But, like, legit, he's not making boys for some reason. Or someone is poisoning the males so that they specifically won't birth sons. That's weird. Especially since in societies where that happens, normally when a country invades another country and kills off the men, I think they do that because they want to take off anyone that can grow up and become big and strong and fight back. Also, I feel like in towns where the birth rate has dropped so low that it's like 10 years, no babies, I think they're sterilizing the people in secret because it takes years for people to figure out they're sterilized. The Native American population dropped by 40% because America was so good at secretly sterilizing our indigenous populations. The Native Americans aren't just one tribe, that's a whole bunch of different tribes. They could full well, like the PFAS in the water could full well be stuff to actively sterilize people in the area.